Hi everyone, welcome to this Veikis product release. Today we are releasing a bunch of improvements for our forms, so they get due date reminders, a progress bar, a couple of new validations, and a few more things. Then we also have updates for our email notification system, as well as news for our workflows. So let's dive right in. I will show you the most important ones today, and as always, you will find more on the product newsletter, on the website, as well as in the changelog. Let's start with forms, and if you've been using our forms a bit, you will see the difference right away. So I have a form block here. Let me switch to the preview so you see the first feature live. And the first one is our progress bar on the top. Especially if you have a long form, I think it's very nice if you can see how many of the questions already have been answered. And this is now possible, so I can just go and say test, and you can see that the bar will fill green, and this way you have a much better overview. However, if you don't like this, you can always remove it in Appearance and just click this button. A second feature that we shipped is this set due date feature. You can see that it's not visible in the customer view. However, in your view, you can set the due date here. And for example, I can set it to the 14th. First of all, your customer will see this. And also you can now send email notifications for it. And if you click on settings, email notifications, you will find it on the bottom here. So you have a forms due reminder, you can enable this. And just like our task reminders, you can set multiple reminders. So I could say it's one day before the due date on the same day. And then it will remind your customer if you have multiple forms due on the same date, it will be batching those notifications, so it's very clear to the customer as well, and they can open the form directly from the email notification. So this is super useful if you have a lot of data that you need to usually chase for. We will do this now for you, and you don't even have to configure an action plan or so to send out these reminders. So these are the form reminders, as well as the form progress bar. Super excited about these updates. And there's also a couple more in the details in the forms. First of all, in the tables, we added a new option. So let me click on edit here and add a column. You can now add predefined options. So you can click on text and then say drop down. And here you can add options. So for example, I can do option 1 and option 2. So let me do red and blue. Done. And now instead of having a free text field, the customer gets a drop down here. Extremely useful if you have predefined values that they need to fill out. And then another new validation that we support in the table, but also in short text questions, is phone numbers. So if you click here, you can see that I can put in just any number or anything, but it will show me it needs a phone number with a country code and validates this data. So I can't submit now without doing this correctly. That's it for the forms. Let's go to the email notifications next, and we can stay in this space and just click on settings and then go to notifications on the top here. Fundamentally, we didn't do a lot of changes to the functionality here. We just made them way easier to set up. First of all, in the notifications, you will see that you now see all the active by default notifications. These are always enabled. You can't turn them off because our comment and chat feature doesn't make sense if you don't have these turned on. So these are about notifying your customer about any new replies that you're giving to them or when you mention them or so. And then we have the typical task notifications and the new form notifications if you scroll down. And instead of having to click automatically enroll new stakeholders or having to manage each stakeholder individually, we simplified this now. You enable or disable a notification. So I can just say I want to have the task date change notification on. And right away, everyone in this workspace will be enrolled. And you can check that here. We don't show you them individually anymore below the notification to simplify the interface, but you can always click here if you want to have full control. Also, if you say, no, I don't want to have Veikis managing this, I want to actually manage myself, you can always go into the manual mode. And this way, you can now select the stakeholders that you want to have, and you have a custom selection, and you see here only selected people will receive these email notifications. This should make the full notification setup a lot more clear and a lot more transparent what is turned on, what is off, and who's actually enrolled. And hopefully it's now more simple for you to use. And yeah, let us know if you have any more feedback to the email notifications. We would really love to hear about it, as we really want to help you automate the chasing of your customers. Finally, let's take a look at the workflows. I switched to a template because this is where you configure the workflows, and you will find your workflows if you click on settings on the left and then go to workflows here. Now, when I create a workflow from scratch, I have new triggers. First of all, we now have internal property updated. This is, for example, your status property for the Kanban board. If you're using the Kanban board in your dashboard, you could now trigger a workflow based on a stage change, for example, which can be very helpful. Another news that we have here is for form completed, we now do have a way to add conditions. So let's say you don't want to always trigger a workflow. You only want to trigger it if there's a certain answer to a certain question. So you might want to send an email notification internally if question SSO is yes, and you want to activate your engineers to help with the setup or so. So you can just click on add condition and then select the question and select the answer. And this way you have a conditional workflow. Furthermore, let's move to the actions because there are also a couple news here. First of all, we now allow you to trigger a webhook. This is a bit more technical, of course, but if you want to create any automations with external services that we don't integrate with yet, this can be extremely helpful to trigger those services from our side. And you can even define custom query strings. We will always send kind of key information with this action, but this will hopefully help you to make it even more tailored to the specific use cases you have. And we would love to know your use cases for this. Next, I also want to briefly highlight that in our show notification action that can send a pop-up in the space, you also now have a way to add a call to action button. And these buttons can go to other pages within your workspace. So let's say you show a page only after this form is done, and you want to also add a button for the customer to go directly to that page. This is how you set it up here. You can just create this call to action button for the customer to directly click on that leads to that page, which is very nice to create a more tailored customer journey. All right, that's it for this product release. You will find a couple of minor things in the product newsletter as well. So you're also now able to use placeholders in the emails coming from workflows. We have a revamped mobile dashboard, so you can also use ValueCase on the go, and a couple of other improvements that hopefully help you use the platform even better. Let us know if you have any feedback, if there are any features missing for you. We would love to hear from you. Hope you enjoyed this release video, and then see you soon.